At 2:41 a.m., 4 December 2025, a Russian MiG-29 with tail number Red 24 landed back at Kacha Air Base in northwestern Crimea. The aircraft was coming back after a sortie of more than 3 hours, during which it had been flying over southern Ukraine, where there had been a series of air operations in recent weeks. The jet stopped after the touchdown. On the apron, the engine still warm as a result of the long journey. The two pilots moved out without a shiver, performing the task with the monotony of a job done. It was a silent scene on the outside of a base in rear, well away of the lines. But there were things already going on over the horizon. It is the first time since the war started in earnest when Ukraine claims it has shot down a Russian MiG-29 fighter. Paper-wise, that is an important milestone. Practically, it is much more ambiguous. It is alleged by the main intelligence directorate of Ukraine, the GUR, which stated that a MiG-29 was shot down in a distant drone attack on the night of December 4th. The agency claimed that a special force unit, labeled Ghost, was the one that executed the attack using an unspecified type of drone. Soon after the news, video records were provided of what is believed to be a fighter plane being hit on the ground. On the surface, the video is compelling. However, upon taking a peep past the headline, the story is more complex. One is the mere reason that Russia had not been visibly deploying MiG-29s in the Ukraine conflict. Rather, it has air operations that are majorly dependent on Su-30, Su-34s, and Su-35s. The MiG-29 has not been used on the front line in any confirmed way, but remained technically in Russian stock. That is the only reason why this supposed loss is strange. The plane was said to have been hit at Kacha airfield, which is off Sevastopol in Russian-controlled Crimea. Meanwhile, Ukrainian intelligence reports that another drone struck an Irtysh surveillance radar at Simferopol. Both attacks can be seen in the published video, which indicates that it was not a spontaneous operation, but a planned attempt to weaken the Russian air defenses in the peninsula. The GUR was explicit about that intention. The agency said in its statement that Ukrainian forces are systematically destroying Russian air defense in the Crimea region, striking radars, surface-to-air, and now on-the-ground aircraft. In such context, the MiG-29 might not have provided the target, but this might have been a component of a larger pressure campaign. Then there is the aircraft itself. Depending on the available photographs, the jet is similar to a MiG-29K series aircraft, either a MiG-29KR or the two-seat MiG-29K UBR. These are variants of the Fulcrum, whose operation is by the Russian Navy, rather than the Air Force. The two versions are almost identical in terms of visuals. They are similar in the canopy design, and the discrepancy between them is internal. The single-seat model has an additional fuel tank instead of the rear cockpit, something you just cannot verify on nighttime video. What is interesting is that this is not an older, stripped-down Fulcrum. The form, dimensions, and design are all similar to the higher Navy type. There would be some value in the aircraft in question, provided that it was real and could fly. But that's a big if. Non-operating, grounded, or awaiting maintenance aircraft are common in airfields. They can also carry decoys in time of war, specifically created to attract attention and take up blows. The fake radars, dummy missile launchers, and non-functional aircraft have been widely used in this war. The issue of location also exists. Katcha Airfield is an established military base, but it is not a hub used in the operation of the naval aviation. That does bring the question that the MiG-29 may have been left there to store, train, or service, and not to be ready to fight. The drones in themselves are another source of intrigue. The GUR has not determined which type was utilized, but observers have suggested that it is related to fiber optic drones that have been deployed in the past by Ukrainian maritime platforms. Provided that is true, it would be an indication of an increasing Ukrainian ability to strike far into Crimea with precision, even in saturated airspace. So did Ukraine really destroy a Russian MiG-29? Possibly. However, it is yet to be asked whether that plane was operational in a combat condition or at all intended to fly again. The message that Ukraine was trying to convey is certainly quite clear. The Crimea is no longer a safe haven, and Russian military equipment stationed there is being more and more vulnerable. And even in this present-day war, that message can be as powerful as the harm itself. The mystery is only enhanced by satellite images of Katcha Airfield, In commercial photography during the last few months, there are at least one or two dark gray MiG-29s parked on the base. Its form, color, and sizes are well aligned to what a MiG-29KR would, or what its two-seat version, the MiG-29K UBR, would be, or, as more probably, one constructed to resemble one perfectly. What's odd is its behavior. The jet doesn't stay put. It is present in one image and absent in another, and appears again several weeks later. This pattern was spotted by analysts browsing through months of satellite photographs, particularly in the summer. The airplane appeared and disappeared, as though someone was standing on a prop between scenes and moving it around. That alone raises eyebrows. Why could the jet not be regularly visible, assuming that it was operational? And in case it is not working, then why reposition it again? In modern war, it is anything that catches the eye of an airplane pilot, which is valuable, or is supposed to be. You need to have a closer look at what type of MiG this was probably before you see the reason why this is important. The MiG-29KR or MiG-29K UBR can have a similar name with the original fulcrum, but that is not the same creature. These carriers were reconstructed with new planes operated as carriers. It has a new airframe, new upgraded engines, and modern digital avionics at the cockpit takes center stage. On these jets, a full digital fly-by-wire system is employed as opposed to mechanical flight controls. The pilot does not directly act on control surfaces. He tells the computer what he wishes, and the aircraft makes decisions on how it should do it without dropped out of the sky. It is the distinction between taking an old truck to drive and being in a modern airliner. Same concept, but totally different experience. The wings are also bigger and have double-slotted flaps and little control surfaces known as LEVCONS that control airflow when the aircraft is flying slowly or performing extreme angles. Then, put on the arrestor hook under the tail, and there is no mistaking the purpose of this jet was to fly. All this leads to one of the ships, the Admiral Kuznetsov. In 2012, Russia ordered 20 MiG-29KR aircraft and 4 MiG-29K-UBR aircraft trainers, and the first aircraft flew a year later. They were also to have older Su-33s as a replacement as primary carrier fighters. On paper, it made sense. The MiGs were more up-to-date, more adaptable, and could be more readily combined with new weapons. The issue is that the carrier is still barely out of the dock. The Admiral Kuznetsov has been in refits over the years and mired with accidents, fires, and delays. Every time it approaches the sea, it comes back to go awry. The future of the carrier at this stage is not very promising. That leaves Russia with a small force of carrier-specific fighters and no carrier to launch them in. Their lack of presence in the war in Ukraine is all the more confusing. In principle, MiG-29Ks can be used out of land base. That is what other nations like India do. And yet, these jets have been much out of sight in the battle. They have at intervals been alleged used in subordinate capacity, but nothing uniform and nothing on record. It puts one into an uncomfortable question when one suddenly appears at Katcha and then gets supposedly destroyed. Was this a frontline fighter cowering in its place? Or was it an asset on the shelf, waked here and there? It is a more important difference than it may appear in an environment where deception is cheap and attention deadly in a war. In case the plane spotted at Kacha was in fact a MiG-29 KUB or KUBR, it is one of the most decisive tactical fighters that Russia possesses. It is no speculation, it is a question of design. The K-series fulcrums are not only multi-role aircraft, unlike the early MiG-29s that were primarily designed to engage in short-range air combat. They do not have to change platforms to switch between air defense, strike missions, and maritime attack. Imagine it is more of a Swiss Army knife, but with wings. MiG-29 is capable of carrying close to 10,000 pounds of weapons on 9 hardpoints, including 8 underwings and 1 below fuselage. In air-to-air combat, it may carry R-77's missiles, with active radar guidance and no need to ensure that the pilot continues painting the target. Fire and forget. Or it can transport the R-73, an infrared-guided short-range combat missile, known by its capability to hit a target in very extreme angles. There are even more options with the jet when it comes to surface targets. It is capable of carrying Kh-35 anti-ship missiles, which fly low on the water surface like stones jumping on the water. Or the Kh-31A. a supersonic-powered missile that leaves ships with a very limited response time. Accurate key AB-500 bombs complete the armament, and a 30mm cannon hidden on the left side of the aircraft there when everything has been exhausted. Paper-wise, it is a mighty platform. In reality, numbers matter. Russia uses the jets of this kind in extremely few numbers, and each of them is highly priced compared with their older models. And that is the more difficult to explain, what we see at Kacha. The MiG-29 in the video was not parked on a fighter apron. It was lying on a helicopter pad. It is the same as putting a Formula One car into a marina and referring to it as an ordinary car. The Katcha airfield has never been used to conduct regular fighter operations. In the past, it has been applied by helicopters and flying boats, rather than fast jets that need long runways, hardened shelters, and come with a lot of ground support. As a matter of fact, Ukrainian drone attacks on Kacha in the past have been aimed at B-12 flying boats, slow, sea-based, patrol airplanes that are, in fact, decent choices on the base. Fighters don't. Stefan Butner, a specialist on Russian airbase infrastructure, has openly raised doubts as to MiG-29s being capable of operating out of Kacha at all. To him, he found no photo, official or otherwise, of fighter jet operations there. It does not have the large concrete surfaces required to be subjected to sustained use in fast jet, or aircraft shelters are not hardened as in other local airfields. That detail matters. Bases of Russian fighters who are operational are secured, in particular the ones that are within the reach of the Ukrainian weapons. Kacha isn't. There is one reason, which encompasses the idea that the aircraft was a decoy, which is an uncomfortable explanation. It was probably a MiG-29 KUB that was retired due to an accident and deprived of its value to serve as a bait, or it might have been a purpose-made mock-up to appear real at the top. It was a very persuasive one otherwise. The detail of the drone shots would indicate more than a crass deception. Even the underbelly of the plane seems to be a duplicate of an actual one. The doubts are supplemented by satellite shots of June 2025. The MiG-29 in the base, however, has no indication of deflectors of jet blast, no evidence of scalded grass, nothing to warrant your attention, which you'd imagine starting up a fighter who is going to test his engines every minute. It may have been able to fly, but there is not much indication of it. And even in the unlikely event that Russia really wished to place MiG-29's Ks in Crimea, why should she send only one jet, periodically, to a base with no support facilities when there are two full-fledged fighter bases in the vicinity? That is a question to which no answer is given. So far, the evidence indicates that though MiG-29 is a good fighter, what it looks like and what might have happened to it at Kacha is more about illusion and perception than the frontline air fighting. What you observe in this war is not necessarily what is being utilized. You are supposed to look at it sometimes, just what you are supposed to look at. Look at the clues, base, position, satellite images. What convinces you the most or makes you doubt? Share your reasoning, because the analysis doesn't end with this video. It begins with you.